Bonjour, salut, hello, marhain adlaw. Musta ka bay? Ako, maray man. Nagpaminaw mo sa The Squat Show sa CQT 90.3 FM gikan sa Montreal, brought to you by Radyo Kapwa. Ako si Nikki Anchovy, tingog sa Squat Show, based between Montreal, Calgary, and the Philippines. Karon, magsugod tag kasikas, punk ug hardcore gikan sa kadalanan sa Pilipinas, Indonesia ug tibuok Southeast Asia. After some punk and hardcore, we're gonna delve into some more emotional music in the post-hardcore territory in the second half. And don't worry, we've got some noise from the diaspora too. Fresco, Japon. Super fresh. In the background is Nubian Slugger with Sala de Armas, a little vibe before we kick into full gear. First with Latin Mass from San Diego with the track Peace. Some legendary 80s Pinoy hardcore from Dead Ends with President off of Damnation, and then some Malaysian hardcore from Gempita. Let's kick it.
Loyal, ada pelangi setelah badai datang. Tiada daya dan kekuatan kecuali dengan pertolongan dari Sang Yang Maha Segalanya. Yakinlah, ombak besar hanya untuk jiwa-jiwa yang kuat. Tiada daya dan kekuatan kecuali dengan pertolongan dari Sang Yang Maha Segalanya.
That was Gempita from Dengkil, Malaysia with the track Haya Alal Falah off of the 2025 benefit comp Under the Blade of a Zionist Nightmare Volume 2 on Bandcamp by Sound of Chaos, Plastic Wound, Punks Against Apartheid, East Rev, and A World Divided. Before that was Dead Ends from Manila with President from their classic album Damnation, released in 1988 by Twisted Red Cross and re-released in 2024 thanks to Merciless Records. Up next is another track from the benefit comp in support of Gaza, this time from Bogor, Indonesia's Visuk with Greedy Coward.
I am a greedy
That was Hardik with Warhead, a hardcore outfit hailing from Tasikmalaya, West Java, Indonesia. They're part of a burgeoning punk and hardcore scene that's just absolutely incredible. There's a reason why I have so many Indonesian bands in my show. I just love the DIY scene over there. It's so expressive, and maybe I'm just a little bit jealous too. And maybe we could take some notes. I don't know. Anyway. Before that was some diaspora hardcore from Chicago by Stress Positions with the track Unholy Intent off their 2022 album Walang Hiya. Kicking off that sequence was Visuk with Greedy Coward. We're gonna get into some more emotional tracks now. First off with Limbs coming all the way from Manila to set the mood.
question remains for us amid the question remains for us amidst this promise. What are we doing this for? What use is it for?
That was Millennial Cultural Workers Limbs with Everything Under Heaven off their 2023 album of the same name. If you're just tuning in, my name is Nikki Anchovy, host of The Squad Show on CQT 90.3 FM, airing every third Wednesday of the month from 2 to 3 p.m. We are halfway through the set, shifting from angry to just a bit sad, maybe a little angsty. Up next is a set of Indonesian emo violence and post-hardcore, first with Jakarta's Reka, with the track Melukas Memar di Langit Ibu.
Ibu pernah bilang, nantinya squad budget. Sayang hatinya rindu. Ia pernah bertaruh dengan laut. Ternyata tak menyeramkan itu. Lebih menakutkan, berpapasan dengan sepasang mata yang dingin. Apalagi mengobati bunga-bunga yang layu pada hatinya. Ayah, bisakah kau berhenti? Melukis memar pada langit
in secret, chambers of the heart. We can't say the angles of love that we cannot reveal. Waking hours, my heart still beats. For the ghost of you,
And that's it for the tracks today. Ending the set was Warfighters from Surabaya, Indonesia with Burdens Piled featuring Rafif Talfina. Before that was Last Kiss to Die of Visroth with some post-rock skramz with In the Silence I Whispered Your Name featuring Hervina Aurelia. Kicking off that Indonesian sample pack was my faves Reka with Melukis Memar di Langit Ibu. Thanks for listening. Before we end the show, we're going to dive into some news from the Philippines and some community announcements. From Rolling Stone Philippines, the Philippines among top 10 worst countries for labor rights violations by P. Gonzaga. Since 2017, the Philippines has consistently placed in the top 10 worst countries for workers in the International Trade Union Confederation ITUC Global Rights Index, and this year was no different. According to ITUC's rating, Filipino workers have no guarantee of rights, especially as union leaders are subject to red tagging. The government has long deployed red tagging as a tactic against union leaders and members, falsely accusing them of supporting or participating in the communist insurgency, the ITUC said. This duplicitous strategy puts workers and activists at direct risk, while deterring others from joining or forming unions. The ITUC also cited the arrests of Kilusang Mayo Uno union leaders Gavino Panganiban and Marites David, who were detained by police in October 2024 and accused of murder and firearms violations, respectively. Both are alleged to be associated with the New People's Army, NPA. From Vogue Philippines, Susie Ibarra wins the Pulitzer Prize for Sky Islands by Celine Lagundi. In an exclusive interview with Vogue Philippines, Berlin-based musician Susie Ibarra shares her insights about a recent Pulitzer win and the impact of music on ecological conservation. On May 6, 2025, composer, percussionist, and sound artist Susie Ibarra became the latest Filipino-American to make history. Her piece, Sky Islands, won the Pulitzer Prize for Music, a transcendent and richly textured composition that elevates Filipino culture and ecology into a global platform. In Sky Islands, Ibarra centers the rare high-altitude rainforests of Luzon, which are home to a remarkable range of flora and fauna, including nearly 50 species found nowhere else on Earth. I think these Sky Islands are very magical for me in a way, the musician reflects. Not as many people inhabit this area, so it is said that evolution speeds up in a kind of way. The Pulitzer Committee praised her work for challenging the notion of compositional voice, spotlighting her use of improvisation and deep collaboration with fellow musicians and the environment itself. I find that I have learned and I'm learning as much, if not more, from listening to the natural world as I do from our human, anthropogenic one, Ibarra tells Vogue Philippines. This relationship with nature is neither abstract nor distant. For the past 2 decades, Ibarra has embedded herself in the ecosystems and communities in the Philippines. Her first encounters with the mountain regions of Luzon occurred nearly 18 years ago, during fieldwork supported by the Asian Cultural Council. It was here that she began a deeply intimate journey with both sound and land, working with artists and elders from Ifugao, Kalinga, Bontoc, and Aita communities. Ibarra witnessed firsthand the spiritual and sonic texture of these remote areas. These experiences and relationships with communities and the landscapes of mountains and water have been deeply impactful, she says. They've become a part of my way of being and creating. From Rappler, PrimeWater brings rust-tasting and sandy water to Luzon, LWUA probe, by Lian Buan. Manila, Philippines. The Local Water Utilities Administration, LWUA, has done an initial sweep of the PrimeWater concessionaires in Luzon, where the bulk of its contracts are, and residents in these face-to-face surveys complained of bad service ranging from rust-tasting to sandy water, according to a compilation obtained by Rappler from its LWUA sources. These compilations are part of a nationwide investigation ordered by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. into the Villar-owned water firm, which cornered nearly 100 joint venture agreements with water districts all over the country, most of them during the time of former President Rodrigo Duterte, when Senator Mark Villar was Public Works Secretary. In Santa Cruz, Laguna, residents complained that water is consistently sandy and has low to no pressure, particularly around morning. LWUA personnel saw this for themselves when they did an inspection. They saw that gritty sand was visibly collected from the flushed water. Sandy water also came out of the tap, complained another resident from Santa Cruz. For access to all these stories, please check the links in our show description. Now, on to some community announcements. On June 18 from 8 p.m. on Zoom, join Bahagari Phils and the Pinay Collection for Ang Pride ay Protesta. Pride is a Protest, an online educational discussion that traces the radical roots of pride in the Philippines and grounds it in the lived realities of two-spirit LGBTQIA+ Filipinos today. From the defiant 1994 Pride March in Manila to the everyday struggles against state violence, religious conservatism, and economic injustice, this session will explore how queer and trans Filipinos have always been part of movements for liberation. On June 19 from 6 to 10 p.m. at Brick para Brick, join Lasterisk for an in-person celebration spotlighting powerful short films created by Black two-spirit LGBTQIA+ youth. This day intentionally aligns with Juneteenth, honoring Black liberation, and leads into National Indigenous Peoples Day on June 21st, recognizing the vital contributions of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We gather to celebrate, reflect, and uplift voices that have always fought for freedom. To register, visit their Instagram page at _Lasterisk. On June 20, from 6:30 to 10 p.m. at the Black Healing Center, join the Black Healing Center and Sweet Like Honey Montreal for Mask Off, an intentional space for BIPOC masculine queer folks, including studs, butches, trans masc individuals, trans men, stems, non-binary, and gender non-conforming people to be in community. We'll screen The Aggressives, a groundbreaking documentary exploring gender and identity, followed by a real and reflective discussion led by artist and host, Ceci Barragengana. To register, visit their Instagram pages at the Black Healing Center and Sweet Lake Honey MTL. Also on June 20, from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. at La Sala Rosa, prepare yourself for an evening where the boundaries of sound are not just pushed, but shattered. CQT homies Noise Not Borders and Suoni per il Popolo are thrilled to present an electrifying collision of pure energy and captivating rhythms. The purging sounds of Bad Faith Actor promise an intense experience, while Cuerpos unleashes a psychedelic fusion of Latin, Caribbean, and electronic beats. Followed by the raw EBM-driven darkwave of Un Hombre Solo. Finally, Cas Cadaveres will ignite the stage with their punk meets electronic ferocity. Uñas brings their infectious genre-blending DJ set to keep the energy high and the dance floor moving. For more info, visit montreal.askapunk.net. Starting June 20 from 6 p.m. every Friday at Nelson Mandela Park, Philo Box is hosting a free and open to all outdoor boxing training session in Côte-de-Neige. Want to get moving, release some energy, and learn the basics of boxing in an inclusive, motivating environment? This is your chance. Teens, adults, beginners, or experienced, everyone's welcome in collaboration with Philo Box, Maison Bleue, Anchovy, and more. On June 21, from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. at Osgang Plaza, Sweet Honey Bucket. Y'all ready to get wild? Sweet Like Honey is turning 4 years old, and they're having their birthday bash just in time for Pride Month and the summer solstice. Pull up in your finest cowboy hats, leather, chaps, Daisy Dukes, denim, rhinestones, and boots. We will be hosting a best dressed competition with a prize for the baddest buckaroo in the room. Expect a night full of dancing, go-go performances that will make you sweat, beats that will have you two-stepping grinding all night long, delicious Haitian food from Mam Douce, and tattoos by Fucalyptus.inc. To get your tickets, visit their Instagram page at Sweet Like Honey Montreal. I just realized I just pulled out like a weird southern accent, so I'm sorry. Anyway, last event for this week, June 21, from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. at the Van Horn Underpass. This is a free show. Join us for an epic night of alt rock to art rock to punk, stacked lineup of Dollhouse, Great Dane, Marshall Bloom, and Lost Boys. Is that Dollhouse for New York City? Because if so, that would be crazy. Anyway, more info at montreal.askapunk.net. And that's everything. Merci beaucoup. Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of The Squad Show on CQT 90.3 FM, brought to you by Radio Kapwa. I'm your host, Nikki Anchovy, signing off. Dios mabulos. Ciao. I love you. Bye-bye. Squad.